Peace, everyone, and welcome to the Strength of Continuance podcast. And today we are having Mental Munchies with yours truly, Shelby Presley from Ever Evolving Wellness LLC. Shelby, I've
Hello,
known you for years.
everyone. Yes, you
Yeah,
have
I've known
for a
you
very
for
long
years.
time.
I remember the very first time I met you, and you just
Do
always had
tell.
this
Tell the story. Tell the people. Tell the
absolutely
people.
amazing energy. I think the first time I met you was when we were on a call, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were on a call, and I was like talking to everybody and giving consults, and Shelby was on that call, and
Yeah.
Shelby was one of the people that I remembered connecting with her, and then we ran into each other a few times. She was
Yep.
also an educator. She was my son's teacher.
Yes, I was. I taught the baby. I taught the baby.
Shelby, don't let me get going. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Um, so like you said, we've known each other for a really long time. And again, mutually the energy was always something that I gravitated to. I never felt not welcomed. And I always felt understood. And I think that's something that you don't come across all the time, especially when you are healing and growing. You don't necessarily know what's going on. You just know something's happening. But I've always felt like, to this day, I've always felt like you understood, even if you weren't necessarily going through the same thing. So that's something that, means a lot. Previous educator, but not even previous. I'm still educating, just in a different way. I'm just not in the traditional type of classroom education. Taught your son, and loved education, but it was time to transition into something new. And when the universe needs you to focus on something, if you're not listening, something holy mackerel has to happen for you to tap in and pay attention. And it
Mm.
did for me, in a few areas of my life. So I had to um, pay attention to signs and pay attention to what I was feeling, and decided to transition out of education. And now I am working within the mental wellness, recovery sector, assisting those with their um, overall wellness. When you talk about wellness, it's something that we always think of the mental aspect, but really wellness, when you look at the 8 pillars of wellness, there's financial wellness, there's social wellness, there's intellectual wellness, there's emotional wellness, there's physical wellness, there's all these different pillars. And what's interesting is that if you pay attention, all of them play off of each other, right? And when one falters, you best believe all are going to falter, because they all play off of each other. Like, you can be great emotionally, but you could suck and you're intellectual, right? You don't know how to talk to people. You are very closed off. No one really knows how to take you from moment to moment. So that's something that, when you look at wellness, you need to tap into. And so through my own journey to wellness, I am able to use my um, processes, if you will, with others, and how I have navigated what it looks like for me, in the hopes that it assists other people. And it's been really, really pivotal in my life, especially in this phase of my life. And I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
Right. Give so just to get everybody acquainted with you, give me 5 fun facts about yourself. Five
Whew.
fun.
5 fun facts about Shelby. Let's see. I am a nerd. I love learning new things. I will watch a documentary. I watch documentaries like nobody's business. I read books like nobody's business. Um, I love knowledge. I'm what's called a sapiosexual, meaning that I am turned on by intelligence. That is my thing. If you can teach me something, I am salivating. I am salivating. I love knowledge. So that's one. Um, I enjoy being out in the country, so like more rural areas. You and I have gone out to rural areas, went to lavender farms and flower farms. I find peace and joy on open land. I love to go hiking, you know. So that would be two. Three, I'm a foodie. I love food.
Burger Week.
Listen, Burger Week, you and I have done Burger Week. I think Taco Week is coming up, so we may have to check that out. I love food. I love going to, restaurants and trying different cuisines. Um, I'm a traveler. I have a traveling heart and a traveling spirit. Um, I was sharing with someone else that I feel like I'm being pulled across the pond. I feel like the universe is pulling me across the pond. So, like when you think of like the United Kingdom and um, Rome and Ireland, I feel like I'm being pulled there. I don't know why, but I have had dreams about it. So I feel like that's going to be my next adventure. Um, that would be four, and then the fifth. I think the fifth interesting thing about me, um, I I have the gift of clairaudience. And I don't reluctantly say that because it's something that I am really leaning into within the last, I'd say maybe year and a half. And really, what does that look like for me? What does that mean? Doing research on it. Because again, the nerd in me wants to know, like, what does this mean? And always knowing that there was something different about me, and why I wasn't necessarily pulled to religious, doctrine, but have always had a spirit of servitude, but also a knowledge and understanding that there's something bigger, you know. There's something far bigger than what is in the dwelling of said church or, a pastor. Um, so yeah, I think those are five interesting. I think they're interesting things about me.
I love them. So, what led you to fulfill the path of mental wellness?
So again, that kind of leads me into my story. I've struggled with my mental wellness. And I was diagnosed with clinical depression at 19 and then anxiety at 31. I'm 38 now. So it's been something that has been in my a part of my life's journey, but really understanding where did all this come from, right? Because you can read books that talk about trauma and PTSD and all those different things, but you have to find out how it relates to you. And so, what I like to call my inside work is really what led me into what I'm doing now. And also seeing in real time how me sharing my experiences has really assisted others, especially people of color, because there's still a stigma around. I mean, there's just a general stigma around mental health, but specifically for people of color and specifically for women of color, right? Because again, if you are a woman that is going through a difficult time or a new transition or just life is lifing, right? Because life be lifing. It's sometimes difficult to find a tribe, a village that understands and can support you on these different phases because everybody's healing journey is different. What's indicative to me isn't going to be indicative to somebody else. So knowing what mine has looked like and sharing my experiences, I've seen in real time how it's been helpful for others. So being an advocate, but also kind of a sounding board, has been really amazing. Has been really amazing. So mental health for me, again, and I use a lot of symbolism when I speak to people. For me, when I talk about wellness, wellness is really like a buffet, right? You have all these amazing entrees, all these dishes. And let's say Tuesday, you want to do the taco bar, but then Wednesday, you're feeling like Italian. The beauty of wellness is that it's whatever works for you, you know, and you can change it at any moment because who you are today isn't who you're going to be tomorrow. And that's something I had to learn. And that's really why I name my business Ever Evolving, right? Because we are constantly evolving. Because when you know better, you do better in the hopes that this next step that you take will be better than the last. So, again, for me, mental health, overall wellness is just me sharing my story and some practical tips and the hope that some shit sticks for you. And if it does, great. If not, then hey, we can bust the move and find something else. It's kind of like that.
Speaking of practical tips, I want you to think about a moment in your life where you feel like you were at your lowest emotionally, or you really struggle with your mental health. For others out there struggling, what are some tactics or some ways, some things that you did, or ways that you used to improve or come out of those low spaces or dark places you were in?
For sure. So, the first thing that comes to mind, I went through a really dark time earlier this year. I went through a pretty bad breakup after being single for a really long time. And again, for most people, especially women, when you meet someone, you really you want to give your best because you want that in return, right? And that's what I had. I had never had someone treat me as well as this individual did, but I learned later that this individual wasn't necessarily ready, you know. And again, no shame or blame in that, but what it did for me was it left this gaping feeling of I'm not good enough, right? So kind of the old negative downloads that I had prior started coming up again, right? Like I thought I deleted the shit, thought I healed through it, and it was coming up again. And it was so loud that, and I was hurting so much um, that I did try to and the voices and the only thing I could think of. And again, in all my splendor of intelligence, the only thing I could think of was ending it permanently. So I took some medication and again, thank God, universe, that it didn't work, but it did lead me into a 3-day stay in a psych ward. And that needed to happen. That needed to happen. And what I learned in that 3-day stay was I had some doors, my therapist calls them doors, that had busted open that I had long forgotten about. Eons of emotion and sadness and things that I had completely forgotten about. Because what I learned from one of the amazing psychiatrists there was that I was super resilient, but I never processed anything, right? Which again is truly the Black woman story. We are super resilient. We can get through any freaking thing, right? And so that's what I had always done. Like, okay, boom, this happened, got through it. Something else happened, boom, get through it. But I never processed, meaning I never allowed myself to feel what was happening. I never questioned what was happening. I just dealt with it and moved through. And I didn't deal with it. I just moved through. And so because of that, there's this wonderful book called The Body Keeps Score, and I recommend anybody read it. It's thick, but it talks about how your body keeps score of the emotions that sometimes we try to forget about, but your body remembers. So when you think of PTSD, right? Let's say you're in an awful car accident. The sound of screeching tires takes you back to that moment, right? The smell of something, you're back in, the memory of when somebody passed away and what was on the stove. Like, it's your body keeps score of trauma. And so, because my body had kept score for all these years, like 30 some odd years, I had all of this trauma and PTSD that was stored up, and these doors busted open in the most inopportune time. And I can even remember half the shit from the doors because it was years ago. But what I learned is that because I had been so resilient, I never allowed myself to feel and question and dig into why I was feeling these things or why this was happening. When it was happening, I just kind of marched on. I was like a soldier, right? I was a no limit soldier.
Mm-hmm.
I truly was I served as a no limit soldier, right? But I never allowed myself to garner all of the things I had experienced from childhood to now. And that really kind of led me on the path to, wow, it's not just me.
No.
It's not just me. I'm not the only one that has experienced some real crazy stuff. And I'm also not the only one that has pushed it down and marched on without feeling it and processing it. So,
Yeah, you said something that stuck out to me. You said that all that old stuff, it just kind of burst open when this one situation happened. So, number one, I would like this. I feel as if the ending of that relationship was the catalyst to your healing because
absolutely.
it showed
Absolutely.
you, and me and you talk all the time. And one thing I like about you, is that you're very transparent in who you are. When a lot of people hide it, and I think as Black women, we tend to hide things because we're looked at a certain way. Like you got to be strong.
Absolutely.
We can't be looked at as soft. We can't
Yeah.
have emotions. We can't process things. And the same thing, something similar happened to me. I was hurt and I was in a very, very, very low place.
Yeah.
But what I had realized was the same thing that you said. I never gave myself the opportunity to process any type of pain or anything from the past. I just moved on. So on the outside looking in, you would think like, "Dag, she's this low over this person over here."
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That she knew
Yep.
this long. But the reality of it was that my pain and that pain that I felt, it really had nothing to do with that person, but it
Exactly.
was everything that I had ever been hurt about, whether it was being hurt as a kid or had my heart broken in previous relationships or being hurt by a parent. It all came up to the surface.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our pain is misdirected.
Absolutely. Because again, and it's interesting that you bring this up because I literally just had this conversation with someone. We we are not taught, and I don't know if it's generational. I am assuming that it is. When you think of generationally, right? I feel like our generation, this generation, our generation, we are the groundbreakers in what wellness looks like from the place of how does it benefit us, right? Because when you think historically, especially for African Americans in this country, there was no space to do that, right? There was no safe space to do that, especially for women, right? Because we got two strikes, we women and we Black. So, as women, the safe space looked like family. But if your family isn't safe and you store all of this inside, then where do you go? Right? Where do you go? Who do you talk to? And oftentimes, what happens is those same things come up in different areas. So it may come up in a relationship It may come up in your children. And what I find so interesting is even in my own family genealogy, I have been able to trace back the shit of the women in my family. And it's so wild because I'm like, yo, that is me. That is me. I was able to trace back my Nana, my grandmother, at the same age that I had my 3-day stay, what they would call back in the day a nervous breakdown, literally the same thing. That's not a perchance, that's not a I don't believe in coincidences, right? That is something that was in my bloodline. And now I often tell people, I feel like when things get really heavy, I'm doing the work not just for me, but those before me that couldn't, that didn't have the safe space and the verbiage and the technology. Like I have access to all these things, right? The people before me didn't. So oftentimes when something feels real heavy, right? Is it a basket or is it just an egg carton? Right? Because for me, it could just be an egg carton, but a lot of times it feels like a basket because it's something that I am able to push through that the women before me couldn't. So I'm breaking that, I don't want to say curse, but I'm breaking that cord, right, of mental illness. I'm breaking that cord of abandonment. I'm breaking that cord of being silent. I'm breaking that cord of mistreatment, right? All these different things that they didn't have an outlet. I'm able to do that in present day. So the next generation knows that I can advocate for myself. These are the things I can do to, whether it be holistically or medically, take care of myself so I can be the better version of myself. And I think as heavy as that is, it's a privilege. And I have to remind myself of that, because there are times where I'm tapped out, my well is dry,
Right.
right? I'm like, but what a privilege to be able to do this, not just as a business, but just as a woman, as a Black woman.
You know what's so funny? When you brought up the thing about the generations and being able to trace generations back
Yeah.
and how much truth is in it. We used to have a family, quick story time. And we used to have a family member, and she called herself the family historian. And
Mhm.
she knew, like, I
Every
mean,
family has one.
she traced my family back to slavery, where there was a
Mhm.
slave named Mary, and she had 15 kids down and deep down in Georgia. She could go back, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And I remember one time, and we were talking, and she sat down, and also my gift is, people like to be the ambassador of their family, the one with the gift.
Yeah.
Now that they're all in my family,
Right, right,
they're
right.
but they're in my family. And she looked at me and she said, you're going to be the one to break she called it curse, to break
Mhm.
this generational curse with the women in my family. And I said, what is that curse? She said,
Right.
a lot of women in our family struggle with mental health because of their connection to relationships.
Yeah.
And she said all of the men that they end up with, they either die young, they're abusive, or they're on
Mhm.
drugs. And
Mhm.
she says, I think you have what it takes to break this generational curse. And she said, if you pay attention, you'll notice. So when I got to looking at my mother and looking
Yeah.
at my grandmother,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
heard about my great
Yep.
grandmother,
Yep.
stories I heard about my aunts, and I'm like, damn,
Yeah. I know it's wild. It's
it,
wild.
it's
It's
just
wild. And
wild.
oftentimes I get so mad, when I'm in meditation or when I'm praying. I be like, and so here's the thing, I'm not a super religious person, but I pray, I believe in God, I talk to God, and I'll be talking to him, I'll be keeping it a buck, just how I'm talking to you. Like I'll be driving, I'll be like, fuck, you gave this to me? Who the fuck do you think? Like I'll be going in. But that's how I'm able to release. And then once I'm done, I get what I like to call a download. which is what I interpret again to be God. Like, I hear you, boo. I hear you. I know it's shitty, but
But you
this is
got
what
to,
I gave you. So
you
tap
got
in. So
right.
so so tap in.
You can handle
You know
it.
what
You
I
got
mean? Like, so I'm able to get it out. And again, I always find it interesting, the look on people's faces when they like, ugh, like, I can't believe you would talk to. But if again, I'm his gift and he gave me this gift, I have to be able to relate it right the best way I know how, which is again being completely candid, you know. Um, but yeah, what often seems like a mighty burden is one hell of a opportunity. And so I'm choosing to look at it as an opportunity, because though I don't have children, I don't know what something I can say or do can do for another generation that isn't even connected to me, and I think there's beauty in that. I think there's beauty in being able to pour into people where they can begin to advocate for themselves, because that's something that just as a people, right, just people in general, that's not taught in schools, right? And this is coming from a previous educator. That isn't taught. That's in no curriculum, that's in no syllabus. How to advocate for yourself in your personal life and also your professional life, right? How to build boundaries. I didn't learn what a boundary was until 3 years ago, because I wasn't raised with boundaries. I did what, as a little person, I did what the big people said.
that was it.
But because of that, it followed me into my adult life, and it really started to rear its ugly head in my professional world, right? Because I learned very quickly that me not having boundaries meant that I was being misused and abused, right? Um, and it left me feeling unworthy,
That part.
you know?
You said something though, that I think people should hear. You said that when you were at your lowest and you went through this situation that you went through, that you used the situation as an opportunity for growth and healing.
Mhm.
So when you say that, what does it look like? What steps did you take?
Well, it's going to look different for everybody, but for me, I'm the type of individual, I go inward, right? Some people like to be around other people. And again, you were there, during this difficult time. I go inward. So my energy is in reservation for me and me only. So that meant that I needed to get real quiet. I needed to journal. I needed to get real candid about, again, decisions I've made. Because here's the thing, when you're healing, you also got to be accountable. You got to be accountable, right? And the thing that pushes people away from accountability is the fear of looking at self. I call it your emotional window. Majority of people's emotional windows are real dirty. It needs Windex. So I had to take out the Windex and clean my emotional window, right? So I could see not only out, but in.
Mhm.
What did I do? What could I have said? What signs did I see? But I chose, right, to set it aside because I was in bliss. When you're in bliss and you in love, and the love is good, and the love making is good, and the flowers and the candy and the swing and the waltzing, you're not thinking about that shit.
Got it out.
You're not thinking about that. But I had to be real, and there were some flags, right? I wouldn't call them red flags, but they were damn sure some flags,
Yeah, I remember
right?
you mentioned it to me. You was like, you know what? I don't know if he's ready. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember you said it to me, but we went on the bliss right after that. Like, I don't know if he's ready. But girl, we went here, we hit that, and we
Yes,
had
yes. I mean, just waltzing, two-stepping all over the damn place. Like we are not circling. Listen, I was not circling the block of doubt, right? I was not spinning the block of doubt. And again, what I learned was is that, when we have these things that give us a twinge, or, something doesn't seem kosher, it is imperative that we take note of it. It doesn't always mean that we need to say something. It's what I like to call putting it in your back pocket. Just put it in your back pocket, right? Put it in your memory bank. Just store it, right? Again, my therapist calls it boxes. Put it in a box.
I call it my
Right?
file. I file it to the back
Your
of my mind.
file, just file it away. I love that. Just file it away.
I saw that. I peeped you.
Like I peeped it, right? And again, that doesn't always mean that you need to say it, but make sure that you are paying attention, because oftentimes we find ourselves in really crazy situations when we don't pay attention. And this just isn't in, relationships. And again, I'll use relationships interchangeably, but when I say relationships, I mean friendships too. I've lost friendships this year, friendships that I didn't think would ever happen. But again, the signs were there, but I made a choice to not pay attention. Right? So again, I've had to become accountable for me. Right? I can't control the situation, but I can control how I move, and I can also control what and how is this benefiting me? Is this relationship for my highest and greatest good? Because if it's not, then I have to make a decision. I have to decide, do I keep you in coach, or do I bring you up to first class? And a lot of people we bring to first class and they ain't paid that price. They getting free peanuts, they getting washcloths, they getting all the things, and these mofos ain't putting nothing down. I was one of those people. I was bringing a whole bunch of people in first class that didn't need to be there. I had to become accountable for that. Why are you doing that, Shelby? Why are you doing that? So going back to your original question, my healing came from being quiet, learning to be accountable and call myself out on my own ish, and taking inventory of the people, places, and things in my life. Are these things, these people, these situations, are these for my highest and greatest good? Almost like you would appraise some jewelry. I do appraise the things in my life. And once I appraised, a lot of that wasn't worth shit. Like, I'm just gonna keep it a buck. It wasn't worth nothing, So I had to let it go.
I went through something similar, and I tell you, number one, I had to forgive myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bumping all these people to first class that I knew damn well shouldn't have been there. I had to forgive myself, because for a while, during my healing journey, I was so pissed at myself.
Yeah.
I was disgusted with myself.
And why do we do that? Why do we beat ourselves up for things we don't know? It's so interesting how we are our own worst critic. We literally beat ourselves up. It's like the Ike and Tina Turner story version 10. Like, we beat ourselves up for things that we don't know. Like, we don't know until we know. But once you know and you make a choice to not pay attention, well then,
So once I knew, I knew.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, once you know, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when
it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back when you know, because when you know, it's really difficult to go back like all is well when it's not. Because then you're just full, you ain't fooling nobody but yourself. Right? Like, it's just.
But that's crazy, because when I was younger, in my, late teens, early 20s, I could never figure out like why it was so much harder for older women to find healthy relationships, or why older women didn't keep a lot of friends around. But now that I'm in my 40s,
but now we know. Right.
And when you become intolerable to certain things.
Absolutely.
And you're to the point to where I never thought I would say this, but I enjoy being by myself in solitude in my own company than to risk my emotional well-being to deal with certain things. I don't have the tolerance.
Absolutely. We have learned And I think it's a beautiful thing when you get to the place where your presence is enough, then you have hit the jackpot. Because what that means is that you have gotten to the place where you don't need anybody else to accompany you in joy, because joy comes from within, right? It's internal, it's not external. And I think that, again, as women, as we get older, again, I'm 38 and I'm single. If you had to ask me 10, 15 years ago, would I be here? Hell no. There's no way. I'm too dope of a woman. I am too dope. There's no way. Men will be flocking in drones for me. It's not happening. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Do I have moments?
There.
So here's the thing. Do I have moments where I get lonely? Absolutely. I'm human, right? As humans, and again, if you were thinking from a spiritual aspect, we are not supposed to be alone, right? We are meant to be together. So there are moments that, I'm like, damn, especially when I'm feeling sexy, But I've also learned that there's power and there's beauty in solitude, because what that means is that you are building a relationship with self. And once you know you, can nobody else tell you about you. And that's where I am right now, right? You can't tell me nothing about me I don't already know.
None of my bullshit, nothing. I know me.
I know me. And in the event that you maybe tap into something I haven't thought about, also know that I'm going to do the internal research to make sure that I am not taking on your ish as my belief. Because a lot of times we take on other people's stuff as our belief, and that's not it. So that's where I am. I am secure in self. This is the me I've been fighting to get to my whole life, but there's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. And should somebody come along and want to be a part of that, great. But if not, I have the security in self to know I will be okay, because my life is still fulfilled and being fulfilled on my journey until said journey is over,
That's right. So let's talk about the reason why we named this Mental Munchies.
Yeah, let's get into that.
I know this is something that we are going to be doing on a regular basis, because I feel like mental health in today's day and age is optimal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's going on in the economy, people having issues at work and with careers, people stressed out of staffing shortages, relationships ain't relating right now.
Relationships ain't relationshiping, math don't be mathin'.
Life just be life, and
kids be kidding. Like it's a whole lot.
High as hell, car notes high as hell, mortgages high as hell. They selling houses. They selling damn near one bedroom houses. The price of mansions. It's just a lot.
It's a lot popping off right now. Yes.
So I think that this mental health segment is something that needs to stay. So Shelby, tell me about mental munchies and how you came up.
So again, I'm a nerd, and one of the things that I was thinking about was how oftentimes when we're going through difficult times, a lot of other stuff comes up, or even when we know that something is big for us, sometimes we make a mountain out of a molehill, because it's big for us. But is it something that we can take a step back and take a bite-sized chunk of and focus on that instead of trying to take on everything else? Mental munchies truly at its core is practicality, taking a bite-size bite out of something that you can handle today. What can you handle today? Instead of trying to bake the whole cookie, can you bake a partial? Can you like just one little crumb? If you can handle that, then that prepares you for the next crumb. And eventually you'll get to that whole cookie. But mental munchies is just operating and knowing that you can get through something if you have some information, even if it's just indicative to how can I get through this next hour without feeling like my anxiety is going to overtake me. That's a real thing. As someone that suffers from anxiety, that is real, right? How can I pour in my cup when I have to be around people that need me in 6 different areas, right? Mental munchies truly is, again, a bite-sized chunk of what wellness looks like for you in that moment, right? So whether it be an hour or the day, what can you do in that moment to get you through it? But also being reflective. What have you learned? Because then once you know, you can take on a little bit more. But again, in baby chunks, not big, baby chunks. Everything doesn't have to be just this gargantuan monster of a, storm. It can really be a little munchy, right? A little taste of something that is going to alleviate stress and worry and fear and empower you to do more. Because if you can take that little munchie and utilize it here, then you've empowered yourself. And when you become empowered, when you feel empowered, then you are feeling comfortable to take something else on, right? So that's really what a mental munchie is. Just a baby bite of something that you can handle today.
And it's interesting that you say that. I also want to note that oftentimes, let's say we're going through periods of anxiety or we're going through periods of depression, and sometimes we feel like it's one big thing, but
Yeah.
usually it's the summation of several small things. But
Yep.
when you're in a moment, when you're in the, I call it the thick of it, when you're in the thick of it,
Yes.
you're
Into
unable
the
to
thick of it. Yes.
you're unable to process
Yeah.
the fact that it is several small things. So, I mean, for a suggestion for me, what worked for me is, I start with each emotion so I can find the trigger of that emotion. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if
Absolutely.
I'm all over the place today, okay, how am I feeling? Where did it start? It could have been as simple as I was triggered the other day. It was a movie, and a girl was being abused, essayed.
Mhm.
And it was a very graphic movie. I didn't think it triggered me. I went to sleep just fine, but when I woke up, I felt like I was all
You
over the
felt all
place.
discombobulated. Yep.
And
You
then
felt
next
all
thing you know,
discombobulated.
something
Yeah.
happened. That was messed up at work. This was
Yeah.
happening. The kids was fighting. The little one had an accident. It was over
Yep.
here. The grandkids was crying almost. By the time I got to work, I was just like
You
done.
were done. You were
And
done. Yeah.
and once I sat down and took some deep breaths because I kept popping off on people. You kept me popping off at work. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
jobless. So I had to sit down and take some deep breaths. And I'm like, when did it start? Well, when I woke up this morning, I didn't have any odd dreams. Where did it start?
Mm.
I watched that movie last night,
You watched that movie.
and I still have some old childhood wounds that I'm healing through.
Yeah.
So that was the trigger.
Yeah.
So I took a moment to process that right there. Not all the other stuff that happened, but I only had the capacity to process that little piece right there.
That's it. That's it.
And that's what a munchie is. Instead of trying to
Yeah.
take on the whole day and me
Just
trying
one
to
little
have
piece.
the kids, I
Just
just I sat with that.
just one
Why did
little
that movie,
piece.
why did that movie trigger me? Because I've been healing this for years. Why did that movie trigger me?
Yeah.
What brought it to the surface that I can
And
look at?
paying attention of how it's affecting other areas of your life, right? Because
Mm,
again, the thing with a mental munchie and really in mental health in general is paying attention to how the other areas of your life are being affected, right? Because again, you could be wonderful financially, but emotionally you suck, right? You could be wonderful intellectually, right? You're able to engage and spit out data and facts and know all the things, but you know nothing about self. Somebody asks you about yourself, you about as bland as Miss Linda's potato salad. And I don't know if Miss Linda is a real person. The Miss Linda, I know her potato salad be banging, but I've just made up a name. I say this to say that again, if there's a Miss Linda to make potato salad, please know that I'm not coming for you. But I say this to say that again, that mental munches. So, like to your point, for me, what I do every morning when my alarm goes off, I stop it and I set a timer where I meditate. I have an app on my phone that has different um, topics for meditation. And again, meditation don't have to be a whole thing. I'm literally laying in bed or I'm in a fetal position of how I was sleeping. But I click that and I listen to what I feel like I need for that day. Because
Mm.
as someone that is always giving, especially emotionally, right? As an empath, you take on a lot of stuff. So, what am I pouring into me to remind me that I am okay and that I'm solid, right? And that I'm 10 toes down and whatever it is that I'm feeling, especially if I wake up super anxious, then I need to tap into that, So that for me is a mental munchie. That's one small little bite I can take to make sure I'm taking care of self before I take care of anybody else, you know?
That's- So I love this idea of mental munchies. I think when it comes to mental health, people genuinely feel like, it all has to be tackled at one time and it doesn't.
No.
And I just
And
think
that's
that's
not feasible. That's not feasible. That's not even something that can be done. You would
no.
literally drive yourself batty if you try to do that, because if you are someone that has experienced trauma, right? And you haven't thought about it or you haven't done the work to heal from it, then it would be a holy nightmare to try to take on repressed emotion all at once, because you may not even remember exactly where all this is coming from, or maybe you do, and again, you never processed,
Mhm.
you know, and everything's coming up. So again, those bites, even when you think of friendships and relationships, those bites, those mental munchies, advocating for yourself, letting somebody know what you need. As women, we never talk about what we need, not just physically, but emotionally, like, hey, I need a hug. Or hey, I really need some alone time with you. Or hey, I really need to just be seen today. I need you to see me. You have to be able to share what you need, because otherwise people are left up to their devices and they just going to do the same shit they've been doing, and you're not fulfilled, and then you're upset because you don't know why you're not fulfilled, but you never said what's going to fulfill you.
Your needs are important. And that is something that I had gotten so used to not having my needs honored
Yeah.
that I stopped expressing them.
Yeah.
And I realized that in every situation that I've been in, friendships, relationships, any type of shit, work, whatever,
All the
I
ships.
all shifts. I just never felt, fulfilled, or I never felt like I mattered. But
Yeah.
then I had to take accountability
Hmm.
because I never expressed my needs. So how do I know that my needs mattered if I never expressed what I needed?
And how do they know to give you that if they don't know it's an issue? Because a lot of times we get in our feelings, right? We get in our feelings, and then we often hear, why are you acting like that? Why are you being so funny? Why are you being standoffish? Like all these different things. When in reality, there's something that we haven't been fulfilled about, but we've never expressed it. But again, you got to know you. I often tell people you got to be the historian of you. You got to know you. We know about everything else. We know about designers and things from history and TV shows. We don't know shit about us.
No.
Right? So you got to know you, and you got to know what it is you need that is going to make you feel fulfilled or fulfill you, so you can share that with others, and stop assuming that somebody's going to know just because Prince Charming comes to sweep you off your feet. He don't know, she doesn't know what you need to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
You got to know what your love language is. You got to know what theirs is. You got to know what your triggers are. You have to know you to be able to express that to others, because that's what healthy communication is, right? That's what healthy communication is. I have to be able to communicate with you my needs in real time, so that I can make sure I'm getting what I need, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. That is this with this relationship I'm in right now. This is the first time I took that approach.
I love that. I
Just
love
sitting
that.
down and expressing my emotional needs,
Mm-hmm.
because I keep saying it, like, I'm not emotionally needy. I'm not emotionally needy. And I think the reason why I do that is because I've programmed myself to believe that there's something wrong with being emotionally needy,
Yeah.
and there's
And
something wrong with
you know what's
being
interesting? But you know what's interesting about that? And I love that you said that. As human beings, somehow society has made us believe that our mental health rules everything. It doesn't. Our emotions do. We are emotional creatures. Our emotions is what operates us. That's how we relate on a human level, right? That's how animals relate.
Mhm.
Our mental health is what keeps us steady. That's what assists us in having a steady stride, right? So when we are feeling emotional, we're not flipping over tables like Harambe, right?
Right.
Somebody brought you a wrong meal and you just knocking shit over, you know?
Now it's like, now calm down, bitch.
You know
Sit
what I'm
down.
saying? Like, be
Sit down.
easy, because
You can
again,
feel it. You
your
can
your
feel it.
emotion.
Chill out. Feel it.
No, for
Sit down.
real, not like dead ass. I need you to be easy, right? But like our emotions, that's our emotions is how we communicate, right? It's how we show love. It's how we show understanding, right? Our cadence. That is it. Our mental is what helps us have a steady stride, so the emotions don't control us,
Mhm.
right?
I
Because once your emotions control you, you're out of whack.
I have learned to use my emotion as a compass.
I love that. I love that. To
Mhm.
direct you, and where, like, are you going due north? Are you gonna go due east? Like, where's your sun setting? Right? Because just because somebody else's sun is setting out west, your shit could be setting south. You
Mhm.
got to know what your compass
It tells
is.
me what direction I'm going in. If there's a certain area that triggers me emotionally,
Yeah,
it tells me what direction I'm going in, and
I love
I need to
that.
find myself back to the right way, to the right direction. Okay, this
Yeah,
is the wrong direction because I'm feeling this. I need to
right.
figure out how I'm feeling this, and I need to go back north, or I need to go back east, or I need to go back west. I'm going
Yeah,
south, and south is not where I want to go, or
yeah.
wherever you're going. So I think that art, I call my emotions, it's a compass. It's a
I love
compass.
that.
You
I
know,
like that. I like that comparison. I like that analogy, because that's truly what it is. If you look at it in its totality, that's what it is. It's a compass, right? And once you understand your compass, you have gained understanding and intellect, which is going to aid you mentally.
that part.
It's going to aid you mentally, right? Because you've learned how to be accountable. You've learned how to advocate and understand what your triggers are and express what it is you need. Because again, if you ever pay attention in any situation and you've allowed your emotions to have the moment, your emotions going to show their natural ass. Your
I've been
emotions are going to show, again, I know me. And for those that may be listening that knew the me of '07 to 2011, you had a front row seat to the shit show of Shelby. It was
The
not
shit.
good. It was awful, okay? Because my emotions led. I was very intelligent, but my emotions led. I did not take heed and allow myself to learn and think. You said something not the way, he was getting busted in the face real quick. Like what do we it's on the flow. But
You know,
again,
it's okay. And I want to tell people it's okay to have emotions. It's normal.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're
Feel your
supposed to have
feel.
emotions. You're supposed to. When
It's
you're
okay
happy, be happy. When you're sad, be sad. When you're confused, be confused. Like whatever it is. But
but it's
understanding
not
that your
okay.
emotions cannot lead in how you relationship in any of the ships and how you friendship and how you relationship with a significant other and how you worship. Because if an emotion comes up, let's say in the professional realm, and maybe you don't get the promotion that you feel like you deserved, that emotion that you feeling that may come up may not be the best one to show. That's where your mental comes in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mental, this got to be connected to this. It's a very streamlined approach, right? They got to talk to each other. Brain got to talk to heart, right? Because the brain is quiet and heart is running amok. Woo! On this next episode of Dateline, like that's
Right. Like I was
like
gonna say, it's not okay to go shoot 30 people or beat your boyfriend up because you
or just
emotional, you know.
you're slapping people, just backhanding, just the real like you
And it's
can't.
not even that. It's come on, experience. How many people do you know? And I just witnessed it, somebody they call their partner don't answer the phone for a few hours, and you ready to do a drive by. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, I saw a couple yesterday. No lie, Bible. They were sitting at a bus stop, and so I've started taking self defense classes. Saw a couple at the bus stop. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just walking back, got my water. I'm out of my. I'm minding my bougie black woman business. Okay. Saw this couple. She going in, and again, as a clairaudient, I hear, but I hear. So I heard what she was saying, but what I heard was a feeling of not feeling worthy and also a feeling of distrust. The actual words I heard, and I'm not going to repeat it on your wonderful podcast, but it was raw. It was real raw. It was raw. Okay. And homie knew not to say anything. I was afraid for homie. I'm like, I'm like telepathically, I'm like, yo, blink twice if you need me to call somebody because it's like just lift one finger, But what I saw was her emotions leading,
Mm-hmm.
right? It did not matter. She was in a public place. It did not matter that she was in a business district. It did not matter that my bougie black ass was walking down the street with my lemon water. She didn't care. She was going in. So in that moment, I saw how emotion was taking over.
Mm-hmm. In my podcast episode 11.2, I talked about healthy conflict,
Yeah,
and I spoke of a tactic to use, which was, in order to control your emotions, take a break.
absolutely. You
Walk
gotta
away
you
from it and
gotta
come back.
fall back. You
Fall
gotta
back.
fall back. You have to. You have to.
Take a break. Like if you're upset with your partner and you're really emotional about something, take a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Take a moment. And I always say, you know what? My line is I'm extremely upset right now, and I don't want to say something or do something that I'm going to regret later.
Right.
So I
Right.
really need some time to process my
Yes.
emotions.
Yes.
And
Or I don't want to say something that you will misconstrue. I do want to talk to you, but I need a moment to process what I'm feeling. So when I do talk to you, you are in no way misinformed about how I feel.
Mhm. And usually when you take a moment or a break to process how you're feeling, how you truly feel, it doesn't always have everything to do with that person. You know what I mean?
No,
It,
9
it
times out of 10, it doesn't. It's something they just happen to be the presenter of it. There's always something underlying, right? So even when you think of like abandonment, abandonment can be, it could come up where, you haven't seen said individual all day and you thought that y'all were going to kick it, but they have plans to kick it with the crew. Feelings of abandonment can come up. But what emotion shows is anger and pissed offtivity, when in reality, it's that feeling of abandonment. Like, why am I not good enough to hang out with? Like, why is, watching this show with me not fulfilling enough for you? Like all these different things, right? So again, going back to what I said earlier, we got to be the historian of us. And we also have to learn that being emotional, having emotions, you're supposed to be emotional. If you take nothing away from the listeners, if you guys take nothing away from this conversation, please be emotional. That is the thing. That is the thing that is missing from this world, right? As a collective, is emotions. What you want to be, what you want to understand is that because you have emotions, you need to know how to garner them appropriately.
that part.
Right? You have to learn how to showcase them appropriately. Because if you don't have control of your emotions would have control over you.
That part.
That's where mental health comes in. You got to make sure this is tight. So this is tight. Both, like all these things, that it's a two-strand cord. You have to be able to keep these intact.
Also, which is very important, you have to understand that even if you find a healthy way to express your emotion, don't expect the other individual to receive what you're saying.
Yeah, because we're different.
When you walk into expressing yourself, don't walk into it with the because I think sometimes what happens is that I might cut it by Shelby. It really hurt my feelings the other day when you cut me off in traffic,
Yeah.
and you looking at me like, dude, I ain't cut you off in traffic. What you
Right, what the
talking
fuck
about?
are you talking about? Right. And
Crazy.
so honestly, that is a real response from me. You as
Right.
one of my villagers, right? As one of the people in my village, you say, Shelby, that really bothered me when you cut me off. My response is like, what are you talking about? What? So again, because what you're looking for, and I have to be, again, accountable for this, you're looking for accountability, but you're also looking for an understanding, right? Some type of acknowledgement that you were wrong in some way.
Right. So when I don't receive that, my response should not be to get angry now. Like,
Right.
oh, but you cut me off. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Now I'm
Because then
angry.
a
You
whole
didn't
bunch of other
acknowledge
stuff
you hurt
presents it.
my feelings when you cut me off.
Right. Right.
So even though I try not to be upset and triggered, I'm upset and triggered now because you didn't acknowledge that I'm telling you that my feelings were hurt because you cut me off in traffic.
Right. You're not even hearing me. So then we're
And I,
not even hearing each other. We're not even hearing each other.
that part.
Yeah.
So when you express your emotions, when I express how I feel to somebody, I learned to express myself without expecting them to receive what I said. But I said what the fuck I said. I'm
That
not
part.
holding
Because
it
again,
in. I'm
the
not expressing
sharing,
it.
because
None of
again,
it.
the sharing isn't for them, it's for you. Once I have delivered said message, what you do with it ain't got nothing to do with me.
Nothing.
I'm for real faded to the black. I have shared with you how I feel, how it bothered me. I've given you all the things. What you do with things is up to you. Because again,
Yep.
holding on to an expectation is what leaves us disappointed. And we see this a lot again in relationships, romantic relationships. What we shared isn't reciprocated in apology or understanding or anything. And what happens? Something else happens, or it continues to grow, right? That
Right.
that egg carton turns into that basket, turns into several baskets. And
Mm-hmm.
now you're finding a battle, not even understanding how it became to be.
That part.
So you have to be able to understand that when you share something, a disappointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have simply been disappointed in me. Like, I'm really disappointed that you cut me off. That was for you to get off of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my responsibility, my accountability is to take it, dissect it, and see how I can do better next time. Come back to you to get some better clarity
Mm-hmm.
so I can do better in the future. Because
Yeah.
I have to be able to process what you just given me. And here's the other thing. Once you've given it, you got to get a person time to process. You can't expect for somebody to spin the block and be like, yeah, you're right. I did do that shit. No.
Mm-hmm.
No. I'm gonna need a minute. You telling me how I wronged you in some way? Did y'all even know what you're talking about? I asked you, did you want some wings? What you talking about?
Yeah. The first thing that I do is if somebody comes to me, and it happened recently, a friend, they felt like I had wronged them in some type of way. The first thing I did was I validated their feelings.
Absolutely.
Because what I don't want to do is make a person feel that how they feel is wrong. Who am I?
Yeah.
So I validated their feelings.
Yeah.
And then after I validated their feelings, I had to take a moment to reflect on how they possibly could have received what I did or what I said that way.
Yeah.
So after I validate their feelings, if I'm truly your friend, I don't mind apologizing. I'm going to genuinely apologize. Like, you know what? I apologize that I offended you. That was not my intention. Or I apologize if I cut you off in traffic yesterday and I hurt your feelings. That was definitely not my intention. I wasn't aware that I cut you off in traffic. I was probably on my phone while driving, which I shouldn't have been. But I apologize if I cut you off in traffic. That was never my intention. Then maybe I need to pay more attention when I'm driving, or even if it's something that you absolutely did not do and you didn't do it, just validate it. Like, okay, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Right. Or I'm sorry that was your experience. Or I'm sorry that was your experience. I use the verbiage. I'm sorry that was your experience. That was not my intention. I'm sorry that was your experience. Because I have learned that by saying, and again, I'm a big on words. I've learned that by saying that I'm sorry that you feel that way, it's almost like a put down.
You're right. Yeah. And that's
Like,
funny. I said that too. I
know.
said it in my the episode. I said not using you statements. Not
Yeah.
using you statements.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like I apologize for offending you. I apologize for whatever action.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel like you are accountable for it.
Yeah.
But I also believe in standing up for yourself though.
Absolutely. Like, again, if you 10 toes down and you know that you didn't do what somebody has said, then stand on that. I'm all about that. If I know that I didn't do what you're accusing me of, I'm standing on that. I am standing on that. I'm not spinning that block. I'm not gonna do it. Hey, I don't know what to tell you, homie, because I know I didn't do that, but I will not invalidate your experience because your experience is your experience. I won't do that, but I'm damn sure not about to
To
give you
admit
no, sirree. I'm not that. That's not, you're not gonna get that from me. Another thing I want to add is making sure that we are, when we say I'm sorry, that we understand the weight of that, and we understand that once the I'm sorry is said, there's work that's after that. I think oftentimes the sorry is the band-aid. You can't put a band-aid over a bullet hole. If you have really, really wronged me, and it's something that has hurt me to my core, then I'm sorry means nothing to me. It's the actions and the work that comes after that. Right? I need to see how your sorry, your apology is being activated in real time.
Yep.
Right? And not using that apology as a scapegoat to bring up the shit again. Because a lot of people do that. Once I say I'm sorry, I'm not spinning that block. You're not milking that. You're not about to milk that.
Once I apologize and
I apologize in my totality, and I have really given you my deepest sympathies, I'm not spinning that block. You're not about to milk this I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to do that. And I unfortunately see this in women. That's a trait that I just think, we need to break. It's very toxic. And I know that's a word that gets thrown around all the time, but it's a very toxic trait. When somebody apologizes, the next step is the action that shows that they really are apologetic, but never for you to keep milking that I'm sorry. Once I said it, I've said it. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah.
I remember one time I was in a relationship real quick. We got to wrap it up here soon.
Yeah.
And I guess I did something wrong that he felt he was offended. I don't even remember what I did because I'm always doing. I don't know what I did.
We human. We always doing some shit. We always are.
And I remember I found myself always apologizing to him, and he made a valid point. Even though he made a valid point though. He was like, "You always fucking apologizing, but you don't fix nothing."
You ain't took nothing away from that. I'm sorry. You ain't took nothing away. But again, he's emotional. But big ups to him though. But big ups to him though for having an emotional window that said, well, wait a minute. We keep spinning this same block, and she does not carry any weight to the I'm sorry. The I'm sorry comes out, but there's no work that's being done that shows that you understand the apology that you give.
And I think it was matter of fact, it was over being late. Yeah. If I told him I'll be this house at 6:00, I show up at 8. If I told him he'll pick me up for a date, he'll sit outside for 30 minutes.
I'm petty. I'm petty. You if you come to my house, I expect you at 6:30. You go to 8:30, baby. You ain't coming in. I don't know what you about to do. You can chill with the raccoons. It's a family of raccoons that be kicking it. Hey, I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna took my shower, brush my teeth. I'm in my bed. I'm real cool on your. We can wrap a taste on this tomorrow in the daylight. We can wrap a taste on this in the daylight, but I'm real cool on it. But I think again, big ups to him for having the emotional window to hold you accountable and say, "Big, hey babe, you keep saying I'm sorry, but there's no proof of that because your actions aren't showing that." So
you got me good the last time, and that's when I really learned my lesson.
Yeah,
I think I showed up about maybe 45 minutes late. He loved to cook, and he had us like a dinner for two with candles lit.
Oh, see, that's
roses.
You make my food call. I done put this food out, this amazing meal.
I thought we was just gonna curl up and watch a movie like we always did with some popcorn. I grew up in that house, and I see all that stuff. He done blew the candle out just so that he could let me see what I could have had. He had
blew the candle out. Listen, once a Negro blow a candle out, it's real. He blew the candle out, Jazz.
It did put me out his house.
Yeah. I'm on that. I'm on that. I'm blowing the candle out. I'm blowing the candle out, and you got to go. Okay, that candle is symbolic. That candle is symbolic of this shit is over. I ain't never lighting it again. I ain't never lighting it again.
After that, I'm early. I'll be 10 minutes early. Sitting like, maybe I'll
That
be up.
part. That, but again, big ups to him for, because again, that was something that you needed to learn. So yeah.
Yep. So I took accountability and I changed the behavior,
Yeah.
and that's what it takes.
Yeah.
So before we go, because me and you, we can talk for hours. This
I
is me and
know. I
Shelby.
know.
Me and Shelby get together and we get out in nature because we both love nature. We can go.
Yes, we
I'm
do.
telling you.
Yes, we
So I'm
do.
looking,
And we
I'm
go and we do.
forward to this series, this mental munch. I'm looking forward to this series. This is going to be the dopest. But what
I'm
I
so
do want you
excited.
to do is tell people about your business, ever evolving wellness, how you started it, what it entails, your website information, all of that.
Absolutely. So, ever evolving wellness. In this business, I do workshops and speaking engagements about really different topics that are indicative to, again, what wellness looks like, not just from the mental aspect, but also from the overall 8 pillars of wellness. So when you think of something like boundaries, right? I am able to do a workshop on boundaries and how to set a boundary, but also how to keep that boundary in place, like explaining the 3 steps. Um, Talking about abundance through healing, having conversations about what it looks like to be abundant in your life, what abundance looks like as you are healing through a traumatic experience. So a lot of the different conversations and spaces and workshops that I do are things that I have lived through, experienced, and I share with others.
Beautiful. If anyone was interested in any of your services to book you for speaking engagements, how did they get a hold of you?
So the best way to get in touch with me is my website. So it is ever evolving wellness squarespace.com. So ever evolving wellness all together squarespace.com.
And guys, all of her information will be in the description. Hit her up, look at some of her information. You still do the editorials too?
So I am no longer a contributing writer for Scentsy and Dayton Chic magazine. It was a wonderful opportunity. I'm still really close friends with my editor, but I have stepped away from that to focus on the business and sending out my monthly newsletter. So for those that do go on my website and you want to see my monthly newsletter of things that I'm doing. And I always try to start with again, a mental munchie, then you can find me that way. And so that's kind of my editorial debut, re-debut, if you will, through the monthly newsletter. Yeah.
I used to love reading all of your editorials. So guys, please check her website out and check out her
Yeah.
mental munchies. Shelby is amazing. And what I love about Shelby is that she has what I struggle with is I can help you through it, but I struggle with articulating what I'm helping you through. But I can help you through it. Shelby, she has the intellectual part of it down pat. Me as an intuitive, I know what you're feeling, and I can just naturally, as an intuitive, give you exercises to do to get through it. But
Yeah.
Shelby is able to explain to you in ways that you can understand because she's so clear audience. She's able to explain to you intellectually where you are in your path and how you can get through it.
Yeah.
Conversation with Shelby has helped me through a lot of low. You were with me through my low time, through
Yeah.
my heartbreak.
Yeah.
You were with me through the tears and the
Yeah.
crying.
We was snot bubbling. Yeah. It was ugly crying. Yeah. Hey, listen. That's yeah,
Woo!
buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Woo! Sister, and I call you my sister because we're close outside of here.
Hey,
I
we
want,
villagers. We 10 toes down in this village.
yeah,
This and I don't take that lightly. I believe in words are power, so I stopped using the word friends. And I say villager. If you're my villager, then hey yo, hey yo, you in a different type of class. You're
that
you're in a
part,
different type of, yeah. So you're definitely have been, and my prayers that you always will be my villager.
that part. So, guys, next month we're gonna touch up more on some mental munchies, and just to give you some things to think about and things to work on. And our goal is to inspire you to to work on having a healthy mind.
Yeah.
you know the mind is one of the mind and the heart, those are some of the hardest things to balance, in these days and time. And
Mhm.
sometimes, it takes work.
Yeah.
So again, thank you all for tuning in.
Thank
Thank
you. And
you.
then really before, I promise I'm going to let you go, but as you were talking again, I hear, I heard freedom, freedom. So what that means for me is that whoever this gets to, they're going to feel free or feel an opportunity of freedom and whatever that looks like for them. So, as we're signing off, freedom is, the opportunity to not just advocate for yourself, but to let some stuff go that ain't serving you no more.
That part. That part. I think that was for me, girl. Freedom.
It could have been, but I heard it. I heard
Your
freedom.
head down, because to be honest, why do I feel like it's got to be like freedom?
Yeah,
It's like
I heard
I
freedom.
don't have an accent. Does it have a voice? Like, do it sound
No,
like
no, it's just yeah.
it just comes, huh?
Hmm.
I tell you, when I hear things, sometimes they sound like me, sometimes they sound like other things.
Yeah,
Or sometimes I just know what to say, but I just know I heard it, you
yeah.
know.
I think
So
it's interesting. I read in a book from another. It was actually what is her name? Tabitha Brown. She has the gift of sight and of clairaudience, and she said that when she hears things, it's always in a voice that is familiar to her, and it's her mother's voice. Her mother has passed away, but she knew because again, she's tapped into spirit that in order for her to know that it was real, God, universe had to be able to give her a voice that wouldn't scare her. And I just thought that was so monumental. I was like, how amazing is that? Like, you have a gift, and when you hear, it's a familiar voice, so it won't scare you.
that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on, Shelby. I
Thank you
appreciate you
for
so
having
much.
me. Thank you
Guys,
for
all
having
of
me.
her information will be in the bio. So if you want to check out her website, I strongly encourage you to check her out. Okay. With that being said, like I always say, love on yourselves every day. Um, look in the mirror every morning, say I love you 11 times. And nighttime before you say I love you 11 times, what we're doing is we're programming ourselves to love ourselves more. Do what makes you happy. Do that spa day. Take yourself out. Buy yourself something. Just whatever you can do that to help you find joy. Peace.